Shall we start with Way Back, because we've both seen that?
Yes.
Okay, so Way Back, if you were listening to the show last week, Mark Strong came on. He's in the movie, although we should point out that he's in the movie at the beginning of the movie and then not in the rest of the movie. The story is based on a true story, although the exact veracity of individual characters is open to a certain amount of debate. It's essentially a Siberian gulag, and at the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to a group of characters who are told very early on, these walls, this barbed wire is not your prison. Your prison is that. And the guard gestures to the outer world, and what you see beyond is this barren, freezing cold world. Now, we know from the very beginning of the film that a certain number of people did escape from the prison, and we know exactly how many of them survived. But essentially, it's a story about human endurance against a dehumanizing backdrop and what happens to those people as they make this incredible journey the way back. Anyway, here's a clip from early on in the movie at the point in which they are in the gulag.
Are you crazy? They'll shoot you.
I've got to get out of here. I have to get back. I have to get back. It can't be done.
What can be done?
He knows a way through the wire. He has a plan.
Who has a plan?
His name is Kabarov.
The actor.
How do you know him?
He has no intention of escaping.
What do you mean?
He's a liar. He's been here for years. Seeks out new arrivals. Me, when I first came here, he just likes to talk about escape.
No. Why should I believe you?
Nothing is for nothing in the camps for you. He gets your energy, your spirit. You feed his dream of escape. You help keep him alive. He's nothing but a leech.
You're a cold bastard, mister.
I'm still alive, but I won't be in another 6 months, and neither will you. Not here, not in these mines. But if you're serious, really serious about making a run for it, I'm with you.
So essentially, it's a tale of human endurance, and it's directed by Peter Weir. And one of the things I like most about Peter Weir is the standardly accepted thing that if you're a named director, and there are actually still comparatively few directors that most mainstream audiences can name. You say name a famous director: Steven Spielberg, Stanley Kubrick, Michael Bay, probably. Unfortunately. But Peter Weir is a named director, and yet when you look at the back catalogue of his work, you look at things like Truman Show, you look at Dead Poets Society, you look going back to Gallipoli, there isn't a clear through line in his films. And he himself said that what he tries to do is to put the story first and to take his own style out of it. He had this idea that somehow if he became recognized as a director with a particular style in the way that, for example, David Lynch would be, or I would say William Friedkin would be, that would somehow interfere with the story. He'd more be talking about himself than the story that he was trying to tell. So when you look at the back catalogue of work, it's very hard to see a through line. There are certain things, I think, that come up over and over again in Peter Weir's films. And one of them is, it stands against injustice, it's outsiders, it's people outside of the standard justice system, which this clearly is. And it's also the thing about putting people against landscapes, which somehow the vastness of the landscape somehow battles with the individuals captured within it. And in the case of The Way Back, you get plenty of that. You get plenty of shots of people lost amidst snow, people lost in the desert, people at the very extreme of human life, and somehow almost threatening to be swallowed up by the landscape, and yet also the landscape itself is a character in the drama. It's a pretty straightforward and linear story. It isn't something that's adventurous in the way of, for example, Picnic at Hanging Rock. It doesn't have any of those weird tonal notes to it. It is a pretty straightforward story. A group of people escape from a camp and attempt to make it to safety, journeying across these really, really harsh landscapes. And what you know from the beginning, as you were saying last week, is that you know that a certain number of them don't make it. And I think for you found that to be almost like undercutting of the tension in the story.
Yeah, what is a weird tonal note then?
Well, I mean, for example,
how would I spot one if a weird tonal note?
If you look at something like Picnic at Hanging Rock, there are moments in it in which it trips over into an almost surreal movie. There are points when the characters literally seem to disappear into the landscape, and nobody's quite sure what happened. Nobody's very clear what's going on. Everyone's memory has been slightly affected. What has actually happened? In the case of The Way Back, there's none of that. It doesn't have any of that sense of surrealism. It is a much more straightforwardly told story. And again, it's that thing about what Peter Weir does is he tells the story in the way that the story needs to be told. And this is a simple story of human endurance. But What makes it distinctive is, for a start, he is a really great craftsman. He does understand, literally how to make a drama work on screen visually. He talks very interestingly about, he said the problem with most American filmmakers is that when they read a script, they read the words, they read the screenplay, they read the dialogue. What they don't read is the story. And what he does is he attempts very much to tell the story visually. And even whilst I was sitting there watching the film thinking, well, there isn't much tension as to how many people are going to survive, and actually the way the story is being told is very linear and very straightforward, there is a real pleasure in watching the thing being played out so effectively. It's like the kind of pleasure you would get from looking at a well-crafted piece of furniture. You just think, well, that's not the most revolutionary thing I've ever seen, but it's really, well, look at the way the joins work, look at the way the flanges work, look at the molding on that, look at the way those legs have been beautifully polished, look at how if you
we
sat
got the
on it...
furniture analogy thing there. But why didn't they put that message at the end, which you mentioned it to Mark Strong last week, and he didn't really have an answer? Because they could have said this film has been dedicated to the 3 that survived, but when you put that up right at the very beginning, you go, oh, okay, then a number are going to die and 3 will survive.
Because I think in the end, the film isn't about will they, won't they. It's about what happens to them as they do. I mean, one of the things that happens is that en route, they pick up a young woman played by Saoirse Ronan, who's a fantastic actress, who was pretty much the best thing about Lovely Bones, and also Atonement, I think. And what happens is that up until that point, the male characters don't talk to each other because in the gulag they've all learnt not to talk to each other, to not say who they are, what they're there for, how long they're there for, what their past is. And what happens when she comes along is she completely changes the dynamic of the group, and suddenly the film becomes a whole different... I mean, it is in the end a film about a group of people interacting as much as it is a film about people overcoming extraordinary odds. I've seen it twice now, and the second time I really thought, I think Peter Weir is a great craftsman, and although it's not the most, outstandingly remarkable way of telling a story, and I think it's going to be a hard sell because it's very difficult. It's a film about people enduring really great hardship, which isn't, something that's going to pull in a huge... And I think it is going to struggle to find an audience.